I mean, the strangest special event I had would absolutely be that Rock and Roller Coaster media party. Just the wackiness of literally holding back what felt like hundreds of fans with Steven Tyler literally an inch off of my chest, which was not like described to me. Like that was me like jumping into action. It's like, oh crap, I really am a bodyguard, security at the moment.
That is Skipper Ben Rebstock, and you're listening to the Tomorrow Society podcast. Hey there, thanks for joining me here on episode 244 of the Tomorrow Society podcast. I'm your host, Dan Heaton. Excited once again to be talking with Skipper Ben Rebstock. His fifth appearance on the show, but it has been a little while since the last time he was on. We have often talked about Disney MGM Studios, of course, the historical name for what's now Disney's Hollywood Studios. And we're going to do that again today to help celebrate 35 years, which happened this past May. And just dive into, like you heard in the intro clip, a bunch of stories, a bunch of thoughts, favorite attractions, least favorite attractions, stuff with a great movie ride, fun moments or strange events, lots of just kind of a wide range of topics that Ben and I are going to get into. And stay tuned for the end of the show for an announcement about the future of the Tomorrow Society podcast. Well, let's get right to it. Here is Skipper Ben Rebstock. So, Ben, I want to ask this question to you. How are you feeling right now about Monsters, Inc., and your beloved Muppet Vision? We haven't heard anything official. Are you feeling better or worse than you did at first when those rumors arose?
It's not going to happen, so I don't know how I should be feeling. Like, it's not going to happen. I won't let it happen. I'll chain myself to the Miss Piggy water fountain. I will lay down in front of that entrance door. I will grab the key from under the mat and lock those doors and make sure no Imagineer can get inside. It's not going to happen. So that's how I feel is, over my dead body, Disney, will you put Monstropolis here? It's not going to happen.
Yeah, it also makes no sense. I cannot picture that, and then behind it is Galaxy's Edge. I'm like, I don't understand. I don't get it. So I think we're safe, Ben, but I wanted to see if you were concerned because people were freaking out for a little bit, and I know how much you love Muppet Vision, having worked there and everything. So I had to get your opinion to start the show here, Ben.
As somebody who's been behind the launch bay and been back in those streets and that parking lot and that parking garage and the animation building, this and that, and knowing how little that area is actually being used, it just baffles me to even think that they would take away what we have over at Muppets between the attraction, 2 restaurants, at 3 restaurants if you do baseline, and take that over a space that is just not utilized like whatsoever right now. So it's not even a question. Not like, come on, guys, pull your head out of your rears and do the right thing and revamp Animation Courtyard like we've all been begging for forever and leave Muppets alone.
I think we're safe. Well, you never know. I would never have guessed I wouldn't if I'd say that about Rivers America, but I don't want to go down that road. Today's focus, I lead that in, Ben, because today's focus is the studios. Ben and I have been talking for months about doing a show to help celebrate the 35th anniversary of Disney MGM Studios, which happened in May. It did not happen now, just so you're all clear. And to do this, we're not going to do some sort of dry history, and Ben, we've already kind of done, not dry, but we've done this before. But my thought is I have prepared a bunch of different topics. These are very specific topics that I am going to run by you and get your ideas, Ben. And then I'm going to give mine too. But again, a lot of these are not really, I'm not trying to stump you. These are more fun ways to talk about a bunch of different things in the next hour or so relating to the studios. And Ben, I've been told you prepared a lot for this. So you are ready for each of these with a very long answer.
I have not read any of your preparation questions. I take it back. I read the first one. I was like, okay, I know what you're doing. I know what you're going for here. So we're good. So, but as the Disney podcast community's leading authority on the greatest theme park in Disney history, the Disney MGM slash Hollywood Studios. I'm prepared for anything you want to throw my way. So there's nothing you can surprise me with here. I'm excited for this, and this is going to be a lot of fun.
Oh yeah, and I do have a few mystery ones that either I'll throw in the middle and
That's
or
not
at the
fair. That
end.
you didn't. No, 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 no. That's not
I
fair.
told you.
Can't do that. Can't do that.
I told you I was not. I was going to give you most of the info, but again, these are not
Dang
designed
it.
to stump you. I know you know so much about that park and could probably just answer these and many more. But let's dive in because I think it's going to be fun. I like this idea of just talking about a bunch of different things. So here we go. The first topic, Ben. I'm going to let you go first each time. And then
Okay.
just in case you pick something similar to what I did, then I can veer to something else. So an extinct attraction that it is still hard for you to believe actually existed. What is an extinct attraction where you're like, oh yeah, that was there? That's hard to imagine that being there.
Crap, I'm not ready for this. No, I'm kidding. I think one. There's not been a ton of attractions at this park. To be totally honest, so there's not a massive amount to choose from. I think some might be like, oh, sounds dangerous as an option, or the Captain Jack Sparrow slash Lion Witch in the Wardrobe kind of walkthrough experiences are an option. But I've got to go all the way back to back when the streets of America were a real deal. And back when you could walk back there, you had the Honey, I Shrunk the Kids playground, you had the meet and greets with the Power Rangers and this and that. And for some weird reason, for a time period, there was like a little walkthrough attraction based on the R.L. Stine books Goosebumps that had a just kind of a terrifying like face figure that you walk through the mouth to kind of go inside. It was not like a haunted maze, wasn't really a meet and greet, but it was just for some reason, we're attaching ourselves to the Goosebumps book series, and we're going to mock up this attraction that really wasn't invested in and wasn't really promoted, but there's not a whole lot to do, so we'll shove something into this little corner. And that one just keeps standing out to me as like I had no understanding of what the attachment was for that whatsoever. So, and honestly, I really like Sounds Dangerous, and I actually kind of like the Captain Jack deal and the Lion Witch in the Wardrobe. So I put this one in there both because it just was odd for that to stay back there for the several years that it was there, with no real understanding or attachment to the Disney company outside. There might have been the shows on the Disney Channel. I think that's what it was kind of promoting there. But even then, that wasn't like some big massive hit show either. That's the one that sticks out. It's like, why do we need this? What is this here for? And why did we do it?
It's interesting because I think I vaguely knew that was there, but I never saw it in person. So I may have forgotten it was there completely. Yeah, it's a little bit to me like the Narnia or Jack Sparrow, but not really because those were big Disney tentpole movies. And this is, I guess they just needed more stuff. They had Doug Live there, so they're trying some things.
Disney's Doug Live was good. I will fall on that sword. I've watched it on YouTube here recently. I participated in that show multiple times. No hating on Disney's Doug Live.
Well, that was not my pick. I actually took this a little differently, where I didn't really pick one that I thought like was a bad attraction or even one we forgot. One that in today's modern 2024 Disney, it is hard to think that not that long ago, I mean, it closed about 9 years ago, that Disney actually took the time to hire all types of people to work on very complicated, the American Idol experience. To me, I never did it, but it's still kind of crazy for me to think about, Ben, that they like hired people to act like Simon. And they also kind of did this with Millionaire too, before, at one point, but then they hired people to be the judges and they had to bring all these people in and do lights and do music and all that. I just am a little skeptical that the even modern, it was Iger, but the Iger 2.0 or Chapek regimes would even bother to take that much time, even if Idol was as successful as it is now. It's still kind of baffling. I don't know if you ever did it. I never did. It's just crazy logistically from what I know that they would do that.
Yeah, we did it several times. And during that time period, I was a fan of American Idol. I still like it from time to time, not like a diehard. I don't know who's won in the last several years, but kind of during that stretch, at least before that, and it kind of goes back a little bit. The Kelly Clarkson, who won the first American Idol, is from the town that my parents currently live in, and we're living there when she was on that show. So she was working at the movie before she was on there. She worked at the movie theater that my dad and I went to see like every movie, like taking tickets. So there was a connection to our city and things like that to Kelly Clarkson, which made us want to watch it and support her, vote for her, and it just led us to watching it from year after year for quite a while. So I was a fan, and of course, when Disney bought the rights to American Idol, that's when they put the attraction in, and kind of made sense to have that kind of crossover. Now that it was like under the umbrella of Disney, and it was well done. Like that stage was awesome, and a lot of time the talent in that show was really, really good. You would have terrible ones in there, which also kind of made it fun, but you would also be kind of shocked by, dang, this person can sing, and it was just everything that's been in that theater, I think, has always been really good when it comes to stage presentation. It's a really underrated space. The seating for that is great. There's not a bad seat in there, but going all the way back to Superstar Television to Disney's Doug Live to even now with the Frozen Sing-Along, which I think is an insanely underrated attraction in all of Disney World, not just that park. Everything's been really good in there, and American Idol was no exception there. Like it was really well done. And when it first came on, it was popular. And I remember people waiting outside, watching on that screen to see who won the final show of that day. And like it kind of was a buzz in the park for a time being when that first came out. So it didn't have a long shelf life, but it burned bright for a little while.
Yeah, it's more just like it was so complicated. I mean, I'm impressed they were able to do do a decent job with it, at least I think it was there for 6 years, though I think like its heyday was its first few for sure. But yeah. All right, next topic, Ben. What are your favorite destinations and characters that you experience on Star Tours The Adventure Continues? Like which ones, notwithstanding when it's like, oh, we're only going to get Ahsoka, or oh, we're only going to get Rise of Skywalker. Like overall, what are the ones where you're like, I want to get that one?
I have two that I love it when we get. I like a lot of them. There's really the as long as I'm not getting the pod racer or like that just random futuristic city looking one at the end that really has no characters or anything ties to it, I'm pretty good. But whenever I get Hoth, I love Hoth. And it's kind of funny because it's actually kind of a knockoff. I mean, not even knockoff, but it's got the same kind of pattern and storyline as Mission Space. when you land and you're going off to the edge and everybody lean forward, lean back. It's like, is that C-3PO or Gary Sinise yelling at me? I don't know. So it's very similar between those two. But growing up as a kid, seeing Hoth in the films and in the movies was just like, I want to go there someday, and this is your chance to do that. The other one, I think it has maybe the best ending in my opinion, or at least like the ending little sequence with the way it incorporates the 3D and the stuff that's going on outside. And that's when you go to Naboo and you go underwater and you're attacked by the sea creatures. You're caught in the one's mouth and it shakes you back and forth and its tongue's hitting the glass. I think that's really cool. And then when you're spit out and you're going into the hangar bay and the tail piece of the ship in front of you breaks through the glass and the alien, the robot falls through. I love everything about that. And it's kind of funny because Naboo and Jar Jar and all those kind of characters kind of aren't always thought of in the best way with Star Wars fans, but I think they did a great job with that scene and pulling that off. And I have seen it recently with The Mandalorian and Grogu in it. I think that's really cool. I don't know if I loved Ahsoka in there. In the current finale, I'm not a huge fan of either. But those two, like if you gave me Hoth and Naboo over and over again, I'd be quite happy.
Yeah, I actually picked Hoth as the first one because to me, and it was the same thing. It's like the way you end up on the edge of the cliff and C-3PO gets nervous and all that. I like the look of it. I couldn't think of the ending, but the crate, which is the Last Jedi,
very well done.
With the bright red colors is really cool. And I feel like compared to like the one with Rise of Skywalker, where you see all the Star Destroyers, but then it's really like dark and not very much. Yeah. And then you mentioned the Coruscant one's not great, where you're just like in traffic and space. And all that. But what do you think about this? Darth Vader and the Stormtroopers or Kylo Ren? Which is the better start?
Darth Vader.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And I like there's also
like
one with
Kylo.
the droid, too, which I don't really understand.
I like Kylo. I think Kylo's a cool character. Like, out of the new films, like, he's my favorite character for sure. But Yeah, it's not the same as Darth Vader, pointing his finger at you and getting angry. And I will say, honorable mention goes to Boba Fett in the finale where you bounce the sonic bomb right back at him, and the way
Right.
that thing explodes, and then you feel the repercussions and the vibrations and everything afterwards. Just very well done. So there's a lot more. I love Star Tours. So that like
Me too.
you're talking to a guy who sees that 5 minute wait, and I'm like, let's ride this 4 or 5 times
Mhm.
in a row. I love Star Tours. So there's very few scenes I don't like.
Well, I feel like one time I was at Disneyland and, that's right there because that park's so small. And I did it a bunch of times and I got Naboo 5 times in a row. And I was like, enough, I'm done. It was like, and this was it was the new version, but pre
Yeah.
like all the additions. So your odds were a little higher, but I
Yeah.
was like, okay, guys, I just keep going there at the end every
Yeah.
time and said waving to Jar Jar and then moving on. But
So with my current this summer, we did a trip to Disney World for like 12 days, and then like a month later, my oldest daughter and I went to Disneyland. And right now, they have the same finale scene with Ahsoka and the space whales. And when you do two trips back to back like that, and you ride it as much as we do, I was the same way. It's like space whales are cool the first 10 times. Let's mix it up now. I know y'all want to do this for like a good year, but no, we're good. We're good. Let's go with something different.
yeah, I don't think Hoth is very rare because I feel like whenever I've gone lately, it's like I didn't go with the new one, but I've gone Last Jedi or Force Awakens, Jakku, or that's a pretty good one too. But
Yeah.
they're all like, and I'm like, okay, can we just like mix it all together? But
Yeah.
it's a little different. All right, well, let's move on. Big question. People talk about this constantly. This is not one that's rare. How would you retheme Rock and Roller Coaster? And again, it doesn't have to be a band. It can be whatever you want. How would you theme it? You're just taking out Aerosmith and either replacing it with whatever you want.
Oh, this one's gonna get me in trouble. Okay, what I would want is maybe a more current band. One who I like the music of Aerosmith. I was there for the grand opening. I was a bodyguard for Steven Tyler that night during the media
Oh,
party.
wow.
I don't know if I've ever told you if you've heard. I've
No.
said this story on Inside the Magic back in the day, but yes, I was one of 20 cast members who had special events on my little paper schedule that I got at Muppets one night. Got called into a room and they're like, "You guys are going to be Streetmosphere for the special grand opening event of Rock and Roller Coaster the night before it opens." And so my job, I get there and they're like, "You're going to be security and a bodyguard." So I had black pants. I still have the security shirt in my closet right now that somehow found itself in I thought I turned it in. I think the statute of limitations are over on this, but because it's been so.
Nobody
but,
really listens to the show, man. It's
don't
okay.
know
No one
how and
listens.
I don't know how it ended up in my closet, but it's over there. And there was Aerosmith was there that night, and they were actually there during the day. And I've said this story as well. That photo that's at the end of the hallway that's actually not there right now, or they might have just recently put it back up. But remember when you exit Rock and Roller Coaster from the gift shop, you go down that long hallway. There's a picture on the left of the band in front of the big red guitar that's out front of the attraction. If that picture was pulled back like 10 more feet, you would have seen me standing there with my arms crossed in a red shirt, black pants, and black sunglasses, like I was security guarding Aerosmith with four other guys. I was right there for that at the party. We were bodyguards for him. So I don't know how I got completely on this tangent, but I love
okay.
it. I have a lot of if Aerosmith stayed there forever, I'd be fine with it. I like them, but I also can understand if they want a band that maybe is a little less controversial with some of the news that's come out over the last few years. But I think if you start changing that for every band, you're going to be changing that on like a yearly basis because it's a little dangerous. If they went somebody with like a Taylor Swift, that would cost them a fortune, but I think is pretty safe to do. I would understand that as well. Not necessarily saying that's the direction I would go or want, but that's the direction you would have to go. Like if you are changing due to reasons within the band, you've got to go ultra clean and ultra safe if you're going to do that big of a retheme, which brings me to what I am shocked they haven't done yet, and I fear they probably will at some point, and that's just a total retheme of the attraction that's not Rock and Roller Coaster at all. We obviously have the retheme in Paris to the Avengers attraction. Sim, my podcast host over on Marty Called, absolutely hates me anytime I bring this up, but Tower of Terror turning into the Sanctum Sanctorum from Doctor Strange and an event and some Marvel property into Rock and Roller Coaster, I don't want to happen. but I'm sure it's been discussed. And it wouldn't shock me at some point they're sick of giving the royalty fees for Twilight Zone to Paramount, and they're tired of giving royalties over to Aerosmith, and they want to keep all that money in house. I absolutely can see that happening at some point. So I don't think they'll rechange to a band at any time soon. The time that they change that over is going to be to another IP altogether. And I hope it's only to Rock and Roller Coaster and it's not to a larger area that includes a nice, scary hotel right across the street.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. If they ever got, especially if they ever got Marvel rights back, that area is prime Avengers Campus set up right there. I mean,
it's absolutely Avengers Campus.
I mean,
right there.
I mean, the villain show is nice, but still, it's like you've got it. You've got three things. You can do three attractions right
and
there.
There's space. There's more space.
It'd be like, let's put web slingers in, and I like web slingers actually. I'd like to see them do something different. It was fun actually, but
that's a good one though. The Spider-Man roller coaster going in overseas,
right?
Like, they're doing a spider. They're doing a spider.
Hong Kong or Shanghai. I'm trying to remember which is which. No, Shanghai is the roller coaster. Yeah.
Well, and
Hong Kong is like the Tower of Terror thing.
The drop tower, yes. Yeah. So the reason I would want the Sanctum Sanctorum for Doctor Strange as the tower is because I do think you keep some of that mystic arts and the kind of dark storyline and kind of the eeriness of the tower could stay in place. I love Mission Breakout at California Adventure. Like their retheme of their tower was done phenomenal. So they can do a good job. But at the same time, the DCA version of Tower is nowhere near as cool as our version of it. So please, anybody listening to this, don't take this the wrong way. I do not want this to happen whatsoever. Tower can live with me the rest of my life, and I will be very happy. They don't need to change a thing on it. I just worry that it's an IP that they don't own. Aerosmith is an IP they don't own. They pay money for all this stuff. At some point, with the current mindset of the current Disney company, I wonder how long the shelf life is for both of them.
Well, yeah, and that's what concerns me, where I'm like, yes, there's been bad news, which would, given how quickly, they've adjusted, for example, with Marvel to bad news with a person. But I feel like also, even if you set that aside, which I'm not saying we should, Aerosmith's also really old. So they don't even have that much of a connection with younger people. Like if I asked my kids who's Aerosmith, they'd be like, oh, is that band in Rock and Roller Coaster? They wouldn't know anything else by them. But for me, I look at it and I go, this is a pipe dream. This would not happen with current leadership. Let me be clear.
Yeah.
But I want to keep Tower of Terror. So my thought is you retheme this, you take the band part out and you make it a coaster themed to classic Hollywood. So basically, there's this coaster in Movie Park Germany. It's not similar because it's like a family coaster, but it's called the Movie Park Studio Tour. And it's like a generic family coaster, but you go past like all these things that are various genres of movie. But to me, I also kind of like the idea of, I know the sets would probably not that be. You'd probably do most of it with the queue, but you can even make little nods to the great movie ride. And yes, you're going by it at 65 miles an hour. You're not going to actually have a story, but the idea that if you've got Tower of Terror, that's old Hollywood. You've got this, you theme this to old Hollywood. You've got that other area in the back. You could do something there. Now, granted, Iger's never going to do this. This is what I would think would be fun because I want to preserve Twilight Zone Tower of Terror, not because I love Mission Breakout, but again, I don't love it as much as Tower of Terror. I'm sorry. We don't need it in Florida. And it's really fun. They did an amazing job with not having that other part. So my thought is you've got Galaxy's Edge, you've got Toy Story Land. They each have their own vibes and sensibilities. You're going to have Monstropolis and Mickey's. Why not carve out this corner and say, this is old Hollywood? Now it'd be nice if they had some type of movie that connected to that they could do. But I love the idea. And like I said, I know they would never do it.
With your idea, what we do is when they're building Monstropolis behind Rock and Roller Coaster, hint, hint, wink, wink, not on the other side of the park, but when they're building Monstropolis, and hopefully they add on to more Pixar, kind of make that a whole Pixar area. You get our Pixar buddy, Randy Newman, to go, hey, you want to re-record I Love LA? And that's your new song for Rock and Roller Coaster. And it's not your old Hollywood, but it is LA Hollywood-ish. And you just do I Love LA as your song. And it's just an homage to that part of the country. And it keeps you in that world of having Rock and Roller Coaster, and I think that fits. So we'll call Randy up. See what Randy, if Randy's cool with us using his song there.
All I ever think of is the Naked Gun when they think of I Love LA. But I know that's not what the song was written for. But that's all I think of. All right. Well, let's move on.
I think a Dodger wins, and that's I Love LA playing after a Dodger win.
I think you guys on Marty Called could do a whole episode just on retheming Rock and Roller Coaster. So I don't want to get too sidetracked, but I like, well, I don't know if I like your idea, but your idea makes sense with what they would do. Mine is the ridiculous one. Okay. You've been to a lot of special events that they've had either as a guest, seeing wrestling and various other things, or as a, like you just mentioned, as a cast member. What's a strangest moment? I'm sure you've had many. What's like a really strange moment you've experienced, or another way, which I'm going to get to, a really strange special event, maybe something like that.
Oh, the strangest special event I had would absolutely be that Rock and Roller Coaster media party. Just the wackiness of literally holding back what felt like hundreds of fans with Steven Tyler literally an inch off of my chest, which was not like described to me. That was me like jumping into action. It's like, oh crap, I really am a bodyguard, security at the moment. The fun part on that one was the day started where we had a red carpet out in front of the entrance in limo. So what happened was there were radio contest winners, and there were like 100 winners, something like that. And their thing was they got to come to this party and they got to ride Rock and Roller Coaster with a member of Aerosmith. So a member of Aerosmith would sit in the front two seats, and then they'd fill up the rest of the train. And so you'd be like, I got to ride with Steven Tyler. I got to ride with whatever. But the way they arrived was by limo that dropped them off at the front of in front of the entrance gate. We had a red carpet lined up. We had Streetmosphere paparazzi asking for autographs, treating these contest winners like they were celebrities arriving for the party. And so I was security at that for like 2 hours as people were coming through and dealing with the paparazzi, the Streetmosphere that we would see like on Hollywood Boulevard and Sunset Boulevard. Right. They were playing, super fans and paparazzi and asking for their autographs and this and that. And I'd have to go shove them off and allow them to. It was just a whack. Like I had no training for this. I don't know why I got picked for this. This was just a fun deal. I met several quote unquote celebrities that night, like Jeannie Garth from Beverly Hills 90210.
Yes.
I met the cast from, I don't know if you remember the show California Dreams. It was a NBC show that came on Saturdays after Saved by the Bell. That was about a band from California, and they had Rock Dreams, and they were all there. I don't know if you remember the MTV I Want to Be a VJ contest that they had. It was a reality show.
Oh, yeah. That was the one that really, what's that guy's name that
Jesse.
won? Yes.
Jesse. So this is how weird that night was. I get tapped on the shoulder at one point, turn around, and I can do this quote because I'll just never forget it. But I hear this, "Hey, man, you mind taking my picture with these two ladies over here?" And I turn around, and it's Jesse, the newest VJ on MTV that won that contest. Like, sure, no problem. So I'm taking his picture. It was the weirdest night. I got, I would dig it up. This is a audio podcast. If we were on the video version of this, they put these large guitar picks on every table that was there. And again, I get it fell into my backpack the same way that shirt did, but I was able to grab one of those. And it's a large guitar pick that has the Rock and Roller Coaster logo on it, and it has the grand opening party and the date of it and all that stuff on there. So absolutely just one of the coolest nights ever for me, just getting to be a part of that. So as far as like special event, that's probably the only one I can tell you about. There's another one that I just don't want to get your show in any kind of trouble.
I understand.
We'll be good with that, but that can be for the Patreon crowd, for your special subscribers or we'll get into that on the next time I'm on the show.
yes, the next time. That VJ thing, I remember it came down to Jesse and Dave Holmes.
Yes,
Dave Holmes was like the guy who knew all the music, and I was rooting for him. I was like, that guy's the guy. And then Jesse won. I was like, what? Of course, then Dave Holmes ended up working for him.
This was the day. Yeah, this was the days of pranking reality shows back when you remember Sanjaya with American Idol was the same way. Let's get this guy who can't sing like as far as we can. That was the deal with Jesse. Like he was the worst. He was terrible. everybody's home is like, this would be hilarious if we vote him and they have to like give him a contract and he's on TV every day. So yeah, it was a different world back then when you can manipulate reality shows through phone calls.
Yeah, not really allowed anymore. Okay, I'm going to briefly mention mine. I can't live up to that. I was just thinking about the one when in December of 1994, the great figure skater Nancy Kerrigan had won a silver medal that year at the Olympics, in the Winter Olympics. And yes, I had to look up what she won. I didn't remember this. So they had they set up this little ice rink over there. I forget exactly where, one of the theaters, and they got her out there, and it was like we were there the day of. We didn't plan it, and she does this little skate, does a little twirl, and then she had the most awkward experience ever of interviewing kids that were like there and really big fans, and Nancy Kerrigan, or they had to ask her questions is what it was about, like her experience. She was not super excited to be there. That's what I will say, Ben. She was a little over this whole experience. And I think I was like 18 then already. And I was like, this is all very strange. This is strange. But I still remember it. I have a very blurry picture of Nancy Kerrigan kind of skating far in the distance with a very crappy camera, I'm sure. So that was my experience.
I like how you said you had to look up when Carrie went, as you're sitting there with the I love Nancy Kerrigan t-shirt on to do this show, that you can't prove that you're not wearing that right now. So
I'm like Jenny Nicholson. I just buy the props for our show here. I'm totally going for it here. But
well, I am waiting for that 4-hour version of that story to tell us about that experience.
With
so that's
12 chapters.
Yes.
No, that Galactic Star Cruiser video, 2 thumbs up. Very, very awesome.
It was very good.
Yes. Continuing what we are here for, Ben. Okay. The hard-hitting questions. Here's a hard-hitting one for you. What was the best scene or one of the most fun scenes for the audience in Superstar Television? So what was the one that got the big laughs that you were like, this is fun? What were the ones that you enjoyed?
The one that always got the big laugh, there were 2. The cheer scene. Just because there was usually several people from the audience in that one. So there was a lot of participation. So you get a lot of responses by multiple families in the crowd that would laugh along. But the one that always got the best reaction, and it shouldn't be a shock, was the I Love Lucy candy scene. That one was always hilarious. It's probably the most iconic scene from that legendary television show. And to get to recreate that multiple times a day, it was almost... I grew up watching I Love Lucy. My mom and I watched it. I loved I Love Lucy. I still think it's really, really funny. And if there's any scene that you would ever want to recreate and be a part of as a fan, it was always going to be that scene. And it's just stupid and wacky and shoving those chocolates in your mouth and getting to laugh along with Lucy next to you doing it. That one always just brought the laughs. So I think it's a pretty easy choice for me, the Chocolate Factory scene.
Well, I'm going to read what I wrote here in my little note, which is the one that usually got the big laughs was the chocolate scene from I Love Lucy. But I will mention, well, wait, let me ask you this. I know you were a cast member, but before that or whenever or after, were you ever a participant in Superstar Television?
Yeah, so Superstar Television was done before I was a cast member. So
right.
I never got to do the backdoor trick like I did with Disney Dug Live. I got to be part of that many times. Anytime I wanted to, I could be part of the Beats band. They would pull people from the crowd and you were part of the Beats band. Because a lot of the Sweetums from Muppets also worked at Disney's Dug Live. And so you would just go over there and let them know you're there and you get snuck on. I know I did it once as a kid. I can't remember if I did it any other time. We loved it. Superstar Television is a classic, just all-time favorite attraction of mine. I love Superstar Television. Wish there was a way they could do that now. With technology, you can do it really cool ways. Tim and I have talked about ways to kind of bring that back, especially like with the Void and the stuff they do for the Mandalorian. Like you could really, really do some cool stuff. But the time I did it that I can remember, I think I did it more than once, but the only one that I can remember was I was part of the Gilligan's Island scene. Can't remember if I was the skipper or Gilligan or which one I was, but it was me and my sisters, and we went with another family, and the 2 boys that were my friends, they got picked as well. So it was like 5 of us kids that were part of that scene from one traveling group.
Now that's really fun. I was mentioning the Cheers one. You mentioned being fun because once I was bar patron number 4 because I think we talked about this on a past show, but I have this card that says bar patron number 4, which is why I know that I still have. And I got to say it's my birthday too.
It's my
I don't
birthday
get the
too.
main
Yeah.
thing. I was just the other guy, and the beer cup was this like fake thing that was like
Yeah.
plastic. But also, I always thought my dad had been in a Universal show like this, but I was watching it today and I realized, oh no, my dad was in the General Hospital scene when I was young, because I remember him they have you wear this like trench coat and he was wearing shorts under it and it was very strange. But yeah, he was the like husband who caught his wife and then like she pulls out the gun, or I forget.
Yep.
I remember as a kid being kind of mortified by the entire experience, but now it's fun. Now I think it's funny. I need to bring that up to him again.
My dad and I did get to be mother at the Alfred Hitchcock
yes,
show at Universal that kind of did similar stuff. So we got to be behind the curtain dressed as mother with the knife for the final prank of that show. So yeah, anytime we could get picked for crowd participation, we always tried our hardest to. Sounds Dangerous, I got to do. No, sorry, Monster Sound Show. I got to do that many
nice.
times and work in that show. So, but yeah, I can only remember one time specifically for Superstar myself.
Oh, it was so fun. And I think you and I even talked about that they should have brought it back with something like The Mandalorian and some
Absolutely.
other things in the past, because very few people went to that show and went, even if people didn't want to go, you ended up enjoying it more than you thought. And I think I love modern Walt Disney World, but I think we need a little more of that, a little more of the audience stuff. Okay. So we're going to talk about the Great Movie Ride. We got 2 categories for this that are connected here, and they're all related to the movies that are featured with show scenes. I'm not insane. I'm not going to go through all the ones that have clips in the movie. So of all the movies that have a show scene in the Great Movie Ride, which one is your favorite movie? Not your favorite show scene, your favorite movie of those. And there are some good options.
That is a good question. Man. I think I have to go with Alien. I think I have to go Alien. As much as I would like to say Indiana Jones, and maybe it's me seeing Alien Romulus recently and just remembering how much I love a good Alien movie. And the first Alien is great, and those figures in that scene are fantastic. That's the one that you feel like you're in the movie more than any of them. But that's also just a fantastic classic. I mean, it's a great horror movie that Disney, putting that in an attraction is so un-Disney that it's awesome that they did it. And it's awesome it was around for as long as it was. So, and it's just a fantastic movie. So I think I got to go Alien.
Yeah, Alien. I remember when they've released a bunch of director's cuts, but there was one point where they released a director cut in the movie theater. And I don't know, it was probably 15 years ago, but I remember going and I was just like, wow, this still really works. Because obviously I did not see it when I was not, I think it came out, I was like 1 or I don't even know, so I obviously didn't see it as a kid. But awesome. But no, my choice was going to be, I thought about Mary Poppins because I love Mary Poppins. I even thought about Casablanca, and then
Casablanca is good. Yeah,
The Searchers is great, but not a favorite. But it's a very great film. But I had to choose Raiders. I feel not Indiana Jones and Raiders of the Lost Ark. Ben, that is the name of the movie.
It is.
Yeah, but and I don't even think it's particularly great in the Great Movie Ride. The scene's just kind of like, with them holding it, it's kind of like the animatronics aren't that great. But
that room's cool though.
The stuff before really you reach Indy is like, whoa. But but I would say like even the Mary Poppins scene is good, but the highlight scenes are Alien and Wizard of Oz. So, and I like Wizard of Oz, but there's a lot of good choices. Okay, let's flip it. Of the movies with show scenes, because I did this a few years ago, I realized, okay, I have not seen a few of the movies depicted. You could probably guess which in there. So I have seen all the movies, and I don't know if you have, that have show scenes in the Great Movie Ride. Of the ones you've seen, which is your least favorite? And if you need a list, I have a letterbox list that I can show you.
Oh man, this one's y'all are gonna hate me on this one. You're gonna hate me, but I gotta say it. I've never been a fan of Fantasia. It's not my favorite Disney film, like at all. I appreciate the music. I appreciate the characters. I appreciate what they tried to do. I love The Sorcerer's Apprentice, but it as a whole, not my favorite. And comparing that to all of the other ones in that ride, it's an easy choice for me. I mean, I don't think I've ever seen Footlight Parade all the way through. So I would imagine, although I've shocked myself with some of those films that I actually really love. Like we watched a lot of that kind of stuff back. I was a film major at TCU, and so history of film. We watched a lot of that stuff, and
Yeah.
I don't think I've seen Footlight Parade. And I would probably surprise myself how much I would actually like it if I did see it. So I can't rate that one in there. But amongst everything else throughout that ride, you are dealing with some of the absolute best films like ever made. So yeah, for me it's Fantasia. That's just it doesn't stack up to all of the other options that I have here.
That's interesting. And I also want to mention Singing in the Rain as far as great movies. That movie's awesome too. I
Yeah,
almost skipped
it
that
is.
one.
Yeah.
But Footlight Parade, I watched that when I was going back to check the few I'd seen. Actually pretty good. It's actually much
yeah.
better. It's like really clever, and some of the scenes are incredible, but even the like dialogue is real snappy. It's real early 30s. But the movie that to me is the worst by far is Tarzan the Ape Man, which is the first Tarzan movie, which technically it's kind of connected to that series, but this was the first big one. 1932, and Ben, that was pretty painful. That was pretty painful to watch. It's also, I mean, it's really problematic too with a lot of the depictions. But not even that. It's just a really boring, bad movie. It's so terrible. So don't watch that. Don't watch that.
That's a good choice, Sue. That's a good one.
It's also easy for me because that's if you told me, okay, you can't pick that, then I'd be like, I don't know, The Public Enemy, but that's pretty good. Yeah,
I like The Public Enemy. Yeah,
I don't know. It's a tough one. All right. Well, we're going to step away. Let's talk about the Backlot Tour. We're talking about the long walking tour, not the short one. This is a really obvious answer, but I'll just say, what to you was the weirdest part of the original walking Backlot Tour? Or weirdest or, most eccentric, whatever you want to call it?
Oh, that's a hard question for me because I loved the walking tour. I loved
great.
everything about it. I think I've told the story. I mean, that's what made me want to do the major I did in school and get into the industry I'm in. And it literally goes right to walking on that tour and walking through the sets and seeing how stuff's done, and then taking the tram tour and see I was just blown away by that entire thing the first time I did it. I think maybe the oddest stuff, and I still enjoy this, but like everything attached to the lottery with Bette Midler was a little odd, mainly because how they tried to convince you like this was a major motion picture that was shot on their back lot, and like it was like a major deal. Like the lottery was filmed here, and you're looking at sets from the lottery, and I just never bought it. Like you could just see no, y'all haven't filmed anything here. This is a made for theme park attraction type deal. I never bought into that completely. So the lottery stuff always seemed a little weird. And I never really, really, really loved the blue screen stuff they did with Honey, I Shrunk the Kids and being on the back of the bee, and how cheesy that effect always looked. Like it was fun when they filmed it, and like, here's what the effect looks like, and you watch it and like, that looks nothing like how it looked in the film. Like you could tell it's just like cheap theme park version of what is done to a much better effect in the final films. But God, there's so many things you could go. I mean, I loved how they changed this all the time. I still remember walking through the catwalk walkway with the glass windows, watching Ed McMahon's Star Search being filmed, like right there, and seeing the sets from the new Mickey Mouse Club. Going through when they had the home improvement sets, and you had the part with where you basically did the Superstar Television deal with you were Al Borland and you were nailing the wall next to Tim Allen, and I loved all that stuff. So I don't want this to come off negative about the lottery deal or the Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, because this is a really tough choice for me because I loved doing this walking tour. Maybe the craziest part was how long the tour was, and that Disney designed an attraction that would take you out of the theme park for multiple hours where you're not spending money, you're not eating, you're not shopping, you're not doing anything. Like modern Disney would be like, hell no, we're not doing this. Like, you guys are out of your mind for doing an attraction like this. So that honestly might be the craziest thing. Is we did have an attraction that was an hour walking tour, and you got right off to get in line for the tram, and then the tram took a long time as well. So when you went on the backstage tours, you were committed to going on the backstage tours for an extensive amount of time.
That's all a great point. Yeah, they were like, Rise of the Resistance is our longest attraction ever. It's 28
No.
minutes. And it's like,
Not even close.
no. But I'm going to tell you what you missed there, the obvious answer for the first few years. But I did want to mention, I even thought it was funny with Siskel and Ebert, where they jump in after the bee thing, and even they make fun of the effects, and they're like,
Yep.
the effects aren't that great, but the
Yep.
kids acting was great. It's like they even knew that the effects wasn't good. But no, Ben, I watched this today. The Paul Rubens and Mel Gibson video talking about the sound effects editing is the thing, because they only had that at the beginning, because I assume they took that out once Paul Rubens had his and he was as Pee Wee Herman, of course, but Pee Wee Herman and Mel Gibson, knowing how Mel Gibson at the time was totally fine, but knowing later what came out. And then this scene, Ben, there's also, they're showing sound effects editing. So there's a shot then of Pee Wee Herman running in the fields towards Daryl Hannah.
I do remember this.
And then in the middle, they change it to tequila, and he starts doing the tequila dance, which she also does terribly. Then her face changes to like Large Marge, and then he runs off the screen into Mel Gibson's arms.
See, I love that. That's crazy. That's
great.
awesome. That's fantastic. I love that.
Weird in a good way, I should have told you. That's all great.
The cameos on attractions back then are still just stunning. Like when that park opened and you had Martin Short and Chevy Chase over for Munster Sound Show, and you had this along with Walter Cronkite and Robin Williams, and you had Bette Midler for the ticket, and like they did open this park with some pretty massive stars incorporated into the attractions to give you that feel of like working Hollywood studio. So definitely hat tip to them doing that.
Plus George Lucas.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Being very awkward, but being himself,
Yep.
It's normal.
That's him.
Okay. So we have two more prime categories and then a couple quick mystery ones. These are both related to attractions. First one is, what's a major attraction, past or present? So you can't say the Narnia one, but major attraction that just never really did that much for you. You didn't hate it. You're just kind of like, it's okay. I don't see the big deal. Could be now, could be the past. If you say you love everything, that's it. We're done. I love
everything. It's the greatest theme park ever.
No.
If I never see the Beauty and the Beast stage show again, I'm okay with that. Never been a big fan of it. I love Beauty and the Beast. I never understood the draw to it and the massive crowds it used to bring, because again, it's not like a Broadway version of this. It's not like Aladdin at DCA back in the day. It's not like the Broadway version. It's the costumed character, and I appreciate Gaston and Belle and their singing and their live acting, but it's just kind of a hodgepodge of lip syncing and some live performances in a theater that usually is way too hot to sit in. Enclose that thing, baby, and then I'm cool with it. We can go see. But like walking down Hollywood Boulevard on every trip, I see it and I'm like, nah, I'm good. Like I've seen it a million times, but there's no need to go back. Yet when you do look over there, it's usually got still a pretty massive crowd and usually a full show. And usually they're all sitting there sweating and fanning themselves off. And you put technicalities on stuff I couldn't pick on here. So I've got to go with that. My runner up for other current one is, I love the technology of it. I love the ambition of it, but the rewrite ability of Smuggler's Run just is not there. And I'm glad they announced the new film there. Hopefully it's just the start of multiple films and kind of mix that up, because I don't care about coaxium anymore. I never really cared for it the first time I wrote it, and I definitely don't care about it 5-6 years into going to get that same coaxium over and over again. So love the ambition, love the thought, but time for something new. I'm glad we're finally getting it.
Yeah, I actually rewatched for the first time since the theater Solo.
I like
And
Solo, by the way. I don't think
yeah.
Solo's bad before you go on this
No,
rant
no,
that I
I'm
know
not
you're
going to
about to
rant
go
about
on.
it. I think there's parts that are good. There's the first like 20 minutes is terrible, but there's some really fun stuff in it.
Yeah.
The heist of the coaxium is one of the highlights of the movie, but even so, I did not see the movie and go, you know what I want to do? Get that coaxium. No,
Mm-hmm.
not really there. But I do like that. I finally got to be a pilot with my daughter, and that was a really cool moment. But I agree that I hope that they do like Star Tours variability, not just, okay, we added a new thing, you're welcome, and then have the new thing for 10 years. I hope that there's more to it than that. But
Yep.
Beauty and the Beast, I saw when my kids were young, but I agree with you. I haven't seen it in quite a long time because it's outside. It's hot.
Yeah, it's so hot, and again, it's kind of the lack of live production on there. And I guess, I mean, I do enjoy those, but like, I mean, I used to work right next to the backlot theater, where that's where Beauty and the Beast it started, like back in that back area by Muppets. And by the time I got to Muppets, it was Hunchback of Notre Dame. And I actually loved the soundtrack to Hunchback because as you stood at exit for Muppets gathering all those 3D glasses, you were listening to the Hunchback soundtrack like
Right.
the entire day. And I thought that was a fantastic production back there. Miss that. I would love to see. I know Hunchback. There's several of those of that time period. Hercules and things like that are starting to get a little comeback, and
Yeah.
I would love to see them kind of get back in the parks a little bit. A Hercules stage show would be really cool at some point, let alone a Hercules attraction. Yeah, Beauty and the Beast. It's so condensed. It's so tight. Um, there's just not a whole lot special to it for me. I'm good. I'm good. If they announce tomorrow, hey, we're putting something new in, I'd be like, cool. That's fine.
Yeah, that makes sense. My choice, I'll do it quickly, was going to be Lights, Motors, Action. I didn't even consider Being the Beast, though. I think that's a better choice. I just look at it and I really like stunt shows and I love Indiana Jones and Waterworld is incredible and I've always enjoyed them. This one, just there's too many breaks. And speaking of a video at the end being ridiculously cheesy compared to what you just watched, that one has one at the end, but
Yeah.
it's not one that I felt like I needed to see that often. Like, I remember we saw it in Paris and I was like, why did we waste so much time when we were there? Because it was that park had nothing then. But I'm surprised how I wasn't more into it because I like films with car chases and stuff, but I didn't really care that much.
I tell you why. It's because they had aluminum bleachers facing the east
Yes.
that just baked in the sun half the day. Like, come on, guys. Like, it goes back. You hear that argument all the time of like Imagineering planning stuff for Florida from California and not taking into account the elements that you have in Florida compared to how relatively nice it is year round in Anaheim. And that was another one. It was like, no, like I know you didn't even have a tight spot. Like you had a lot of land back there to figure out like what's the best way to do this, and maybe don't do metal bleachers that are going to burn your rear end when you sit there for the majority of the day in Orlando.
Yeah, I'm with you. And I would like to be more positive now. So we're going to flip this here and give you the very difficult question. It might not be hard for you, actually, but what is your all-time favorite attraction at the studios in any era? This may be very easy, but I'm curious to get your answer.
That was very easy. The Great Movie Ride.
That was
I
my
love
guess,
it.
actually, as I said it, but just proceed.
Great movie ride. I loved everything about it. It's just it's is that the last kind of classic Disney audio animatronic attraction that we really got in on that level. Like they just don't do anything like that anymore. I don't know if and when they ever will again. And so when that went away, it just gutted a lot of us who grew up with those Epcot attractions and stuff that were just nothing but slow moving with lots of really cool sets and scenes and audio animatronics all around you. But once you mix that in with the movies that I love, the music from those movies that I love, the blurring of what's real and what's not with the live actors in multiple scenes, and then you had the coolest technology when it came back to the witch at the very end, like the payoff. You had the John Wayne figure that was kind of there, the Clint Eastwood character with the minimal movement and this and that. Everything was cool, and then you come up to the witch and she's just moving as fluid. Like you're like, is that real? Like the first time you saw that, you're sitting there going, is that? We saw two live actors earlier. Is that a lot? That's another live actor. No, that's an audio animatronic moving like a real person. The enormity of the sets. We talked about the Raiders of the Lost Ark. Just that room with the Anubis statues holding the ceiling up, and the size of the Wizard of Oz scene and Gene Kelly in the rain falling in front of him and he's just swinging there and like there was so much that was so cool with that ride. And it's another one that you got your bang for your money. Like if it was an hour wait, you could justify that because you're gonna be sitting down for 20 minutes going on this ride. So yeah, I got no problem waiting an hour for a 20-minute ride. I don't like waiting 90 minutes for Peter Pan for 60 seconds of a ride. But the payoff was always like right there. So the Great Movie Ride definitely was my all-time favorite with a strong follow-up behind it, honestly, with the Backlot Tour, the old tram tour. I just absolutely the original version that had all of the original pieces that go into the costuming, going through the residential boulevard, going through Catastrophe Canyon. I loved, loved, loved the old Backlot tram ride.
Yeah, I mean those are great. You might have even convinced me on Great Movie Ride just because, I'm probably far enough from it where it's like my brain almost forgets some of how cool it was. And like you said, you know how much I love a lot of those Epcot attractions. We saw updates like, Spaceship Earth in 94 and some of those, but they were not brand new from the ground up attractions. Mm-hmm. Yes, you have things like Little Mermaid, but Little Mermaid's like 5 minutes long. Mm-hmm. And it also, the animatronics, some of them are a little frightening. So, but yes, there's some like overseas, but even so, for something brand new like this, it's pretty rare to have that because you see like DCA when that park opened didn't have anything on this scale. Instead, their biggest attractions were like Soarin', which is awesome. I love Soarin', but an Animal Kingdom, yeah, you had Dinosaur, but Dinosaur wasn't like this. It was again a short ride, cool but different. So yeah, I think this. I mean, I'm sure there's something I'm forgetting, but overall, this scale just to do so much on this is something incredible. But I'm going to say mine, which I actually had chosen a different one, but I mean, you could totally make the argument for Great Movie Ride.
Who wants to yours is Who Wants to Be a Millionaire? Play it. I know. I knew it.
So glad you didn't take that one. It's so good. Now, we already talked about it earlier. It's Twilight Zone Tower of Terror. I mean, to me, it has such the mix of everything that I like in a Disney ride. I mean, you have thrills, but it has the creepiness, the amazing theming. The queue is incredible. The music is great. Not just the music of the Twilight Zone, but the music in the queue. The whole way it builds tension, the way the building even looks from far away. And then it's just, the pre-show is great, but it's just there are attractions that people come out of and everybody's laughing and everybody's smiling and nobody's throwing up, rarely. I mean, I'm sure someone has, but that are still fun and thrilling, that aren't boring, that I could ride that over and over. And every time there's always something weird where, somebody's never been on it or you see the picture or whatever, and somebody's always doing something ridiculous. And it's just, it's you mentioned Great Movie Ride and what it is, and to me, this Twilight Zone is like classic Eisner Disney decade mid-90s attraction done to the best ever. And that ride system at the time, I've talked to some people who worked on it, was so complicated, and not a simple drop tower. They actually pull you down. It's completely different the way they pull you down, pull you back, and you know this, but so complicated for the time. They had to do so much testing on it. And then the beginning, it was so amazing. You just dropped once. And the changes they've made, then you drop twice, and then they did the randoms thing, and then everything else. And they've done variations on it. I mean, Paris, I've heard, I have not been on Paris's, but it's really creepy. And I know Japan is supposed to be really cool in Tokyo. And we mentioned Mission Breakout. That's a cool kind of change up. That one made me a little queasy. I don't know. It's just a classic to me. And I know I've gone on for a while, but I love this ride so much. I love it more now than I did 15 years ago.
So it's the ride where, and this is totally understandable. Like there's no, the tower's freaking fantastic. And it's the ride though, maybe over the years that we've planned a lot of trips for friends and family who knew we went to Disney all the time, and they would question like, why do y'all always go this and that? Growing up, family, we went every year. This was our thing. And then when they inevitably would book their first trip, they would always talk to us and we'd help them plan stuff and this and that. And nearly every single time, the doubters, the ones who never understood the Disney this and that, they would come back and they would have had a great time. And 9 times out of 10, the attraction they would talk to us the most about was like, oh my God, that Tower of Terror ride was amazing. Like that's the one that gives you the whole, from when you walk through that gate. Well, actually, when you're walking down Hollywood Boulevard is when the story starts and the eeriness. And then when you walk through that gate and you're winding through that pathway, and when they got the misters on and it's kind of foggy and you're getting this just strange feeling from going to the lobby and then the library and then the cast members who are helping, kind of portray this story. And then you finally get on the ride itself and it just blows you away. It's a masterpiece of Disney. This is what, when anybody asks, why do you go to Disney? This is why. This is what Disney does better than anybody else, is an attraction like this. This is Disney at their peak. They've maybe gone down a bit on some stuff. I feel like, stuff like Cosmic Rewind, I think, is fantastic. I think there have been times where they've gone back up a bit, but this is, to me, even going, like, this is an attraction that Walt would look at and be like, holy cow, like, that's amazing. Like, he might not like the ride system. He might question, hey, can my whole family ride this? Maybe not. Right. But like the theming and the storytelling and then everything that goes along with it that makes Disney stand out more than your Six Flags parks or your local parks. This is why you go to Disney, is for an attraction like this. This is the pinnacle of Disney Imagineering, and it's still been that way for decades now, and it's not going to go away until they make it a Doctor Strange attraction.
See, we were talking about that earlier. I was like, well, I'm going to get my chance to talk about Tower of Terror. I don't have to defend it right now. I know where this agenda goes. This is my show. I can lead it. But no, I'm with you, and I could rave for a while about it. It's just one that I think I appreciate even more, given it's not that, because, and actually, I mean, it's an IP, though. I know you could say Twilight Zone is, a lot of kids have no idea what Twilight Zone is. I was technically too young, though I knew about it when I was a kid, but I'm just saying, it technically is based on an intellectual property and still similar even to Cosmic Rewind a little bit, but still you can have no idea and you get it from the beginning to the end to everything. It doesn't matter. And that's where I think if you want to bring in an IP, and I'm talking newer than Twilight Zone, that's how you do it. You transcend it. And Pandora has done this and Cosmic Rewind does it. And you can do that with the best attractions if you do so good.
It's a ride that you get off of. If you're not familiar with the Twilight Zone, you want to get familiar with the Twilight Zone.
Yes.
That it's definitely made me want to go back and watch old ones. My daughter loves horror movies, my youngest daughter, and she loved that. And Jordan Peele had his remake of the Twilight Zone a few years ago on Paramount. So there is like a current version of it that she's gone back and seen some of the old, but watches the new. And yeah, you get off that ride if you're not familiar with the property, wanting to become familiar with the property.
Definitely. Okay, well, we are just gonna. I'm gonna skip a few of my mystery ones just because I feel like they're kind of stupid and they bring it down. We're doing so
those
good.
Are my favorites.
We're hitting so hard. Okay, real quick. Let's do these quickly though. Okay. There's only 3, but the first one. What's a part of Muppet Vision 3D that you think, I'm done with that? I'm so sick of seeing that part. I've seen it 100 times. Is there a part of Muppet Vision you don't like?
Oh man, the Miss Piggy sequence. Sorry.
That's okay. Mine was going to be, I find Waldo, I know Waldo was not original to that. He actually goes back further, but I find him very obnoxious, but I understand you need an agent of chaos to make everything happen. So
I would have said that, but they've updated that sequence with some projection mapping.
I've seen it,
stuff.
yeah.
So I think that scene's been bumped up to where I actually look forward to it now.
Yeah, but Miss Piggy, kind of feel that way about a lot of her scenes in a lot of Muppet films, but yes. that's just me. I understand her role in the movie, so I'm not picking on that. Okay, Galaxy's Edge. You have a chance to make a quick change, something that could be instituted within the next 6 months. What do you do?
You make Rise of Resistance based on episodes 4, 5, and 6.
You can do that in 6 months?
It's just switching out some figures, yeah.
Okay. Mine was going to be, you turned it into Avengers Campus with walk-around characters. That was going to be mine. Like everyone you've brought in like briefly at Disneyland, like your Ahsoka, your Fennec Shand, your Boba Fett. I mean, they've come in more, but your Mando, your Darth Vader. Darth Vader is there every day. That's the one. You just do that and nothing else. The land becomes better.
I mean, you pop the Kylo head off and you put a Darth Vader head. It doesn't take very long to change those scenes.
He just goes in the back and then he comes. Same stormtroopers just comes right back out.
Doesn't take very long. We can make this happen.
Sir, you forgot to change the pants. Oh no. Go back. Okay, last thing. All right, so they haven't announced that much. We know there's a villain show coming. We know there's a Little Mermaid show coming. We know Monstropolis is coming. I think that's all the things we know of. Oh, and the switch over to the Mandalorian show, what are you most interested in? And we already kind of talked about the Smuggler's Run. So what of the others interest you the most?
I mean, it's got to be Monstropolis if it's put in the right spot. You see Zootopia, and I think that land looks really cool. I think the ride maybe a bit hit or miss or whatever, but we're not getting that ride. Luckily, we've got enough trackless rides in that park at the moment as is. So a suspended coaster is really cool and appealing, even if it is more of a family attraction. I'm interested to see like the city streets and the atmosphere and the Harryhausen's restaurant and whatever else comes along with it, to where it makes you feel like you're living in the world of Monstropolis the same way they do Zootopia, to where you see. I hope they take a lot of what has been done great with Zootopia, figures like. You can almost mimic the whole thing where there's an animal figure that's in some of the outside sets. You do it with a monster. It's easy. It kind of writes itself. But I want to see a full fleshed out Monstropolis that's vibrant and active. And there can be puppet shows in the windows, just like Zootopia. There's so many things that you can do. Give me that world, and I'll be really happy with it. And at that point, I don't even care if the attraction's amazing or not. I want atmosphere more than I do. A fantastic ride. That's what's missing at Toy Story Land. I think the ride's fun. I like Slinky Dog a lot, but there's just nothing to that area. It's you're walking down a pavement to go get on a roller coaster. I don't feel like I'm in Andy's backyard really in any way. I want to feel like I'm in Monstropolis.
Yeah, I feel like with Toy Story Land, sometimes I'm just like even when I go at Toy Story Mania, it's almost like we're doing like a little assault. Like, okay, go on in, go to the ride, get out of there. It's just not, it's not that comfortable to be in there unless you're going to like Woody's Lunchbox or anything. But I'm just like, get me out of there. This is too many kids. It's too much. Yep. But I didn't think about Zootopia, but that's a great connector because I've been thinking more about, I think the ride's cool. And also I like this, speaking of Tower of Terror, some of these headliners that I feel like should have shorter waits are experiencing more burden, and Smuggler's Run, for example. And if you can get another headliner in there, especially if you don't replace Muppets, and then you make a path from Monstropolis to Rock and Roller Coaster area, that's what you got to do. Because that dead end is terrible. And I've looked at the map, Ben, I'm sure you know, Launch Bay is not that far from Rock and Roller Coaster. If you put it there, you can get there pretty easy.
It's so easy. Spot.
Well, all right. Well, that was all my extra questions. Nothing too difficult because I knew we wanted to spend a lot of time on the other things. But of course, Ben, I have to ask what I know. You're on another podcast, I think. I think you're the solo host, though. You're the only host.
I'm the star of it. I'm the star of it. That's for sure.
There's that other guy that talks sometimes, but it's mostly just you.
Talks too much.
If listeners aren't familiar, what do you do? And some other guy on that show.
Some guy named Tim Grassi suckered me into doing a podcast like 5-6 years ago, and he won't leave me alone about it. So we, like about once a month or so, try to put together an episode. It's a thing called Marty Called. How it got that name, I don't know. I was on episode 4, so I didn't have any say in the name of the title of the show. So asked him that. But it's basically a armchair Imagineering podcast. We like to come up with ideas and concepts and come up, pretend that we're in the Imagineering room and come up with our own designs and ideas and how we would flesh out certain things. So we talk news, we talk notes, and try to put our own spin on it. Sometimes we do draft shows and we have a special guest that comes on there and tries to overtake our show. And we do our best not to let him, but hopefully he's back on one of those as well. We had that was one of the most well-responded shows that we've had in a long time, by the way, Dan. Our audio animatronic draft.
I don't believe that.
No, shockingly it was. Like people really responded well to that. So so much so that we'll do another one soon, and hopefully we can get you to come over and enjoy us. But yeah, check us out. We're the Marty Called Podcast. You can catch us everywhere.
Well, awesome. No, I really enjoy your show. Yeah, you missed out on the re-recording of Carousel Progress that happened on those first few shows of Marty Called. So,
did I miss out? Did I?
I listened to all of it.
I mean, there's a reason they had a new co-host like episode 3. I'm just saying. I love you, Gary Hall. I love you too.
It's a really fun show that I enjoy, and always like to get your guys' take when there's news and everything else. And the Armchair Imaginary is fun. And it was really fun to be on the show. But Ben, this has been very fun. I've enjoyed all the fun stories, and watch Footlight Parade. It's not so bad. That's what I will say.
I will.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like the best movie, a great movie, right? It will not surpass Alien, but it's not so bad.
No. It's great. No, thanks for having me on. I enjoy these talks. It's fun like every 50 episodes or so. So what is this? 244, maybe 294. We can do this again.
I'll mark it down for next year someday.
Someday.
Man.
Hey, yeah, no,
Someday.
this is great.
But no, that's been really fun. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.
Just wanted to give a big thanks to Ben once again. If you enjoyed this episode, there's 4 past episodes that maybe you haven't heard where we talk about Ben's background. We also dig into a lot of attractions from the first 2 eras of Disney MGM and Disney's Hollywood Studios. I feel like we're now kind of in a 3rd era, though who knows, eras are a little hard to figure out at times. But those are really fun. You can find those if you just go back in your Apple Podcasts or Spotify. It's out there, or go to tomarsociety.com/podcast with the S at the end. Well, I mentioned it up front. I do have an announcement about the Tomorrow Society podcast, and I'm a little sad about it, but I think it's the right move. I am going to be ending the Tomorrow Society podcast on episode 250. So this is 244. So there are still 6 more episodes. And I like the idea of ending on kind of a cool number rather than just some random number to say, hey, this project has gone on for 250 episodes. It's kind of the perfect time. But mention a little more about it in episode 250, which will be the final episode. But I'll mention here briefly about what I'm thinking in terms of ending the show. I started this show way back in 2015. It was around exactly really about 9 years ago. And when I started it, I kind of fell into it. It was really just, I'll do a few interviews for this new blog that I'm doing, and maybe I'll record it, and did a few with Ryan Ritchie and Christian Moran and Sam Genoway, and was like, this is kind of fun. And then a few people that I really admired, like Testa and others, were on. And I thought, this is pretty cool, but I wasn't doing that many episodes. Then in 2018, I was like, okay, I'm going to do a show every 2 weeks. I'm going to stick to that, sometimes weekly. And around that time, too, I also started talking to people that had worked behind the scenes in the industry, starting with like Bruce Broughton and Steve Alcorn and then Rick Harper. And then it kind of went from there. And all of a sudden, this show became as much about talking to former Imagineers and did some roundtables. So many people that I just love talking with, and it's been such a great ride. But I have noticed just in the past year or so that personally, I still, when I'm doing the interviews, I still love doing it. Like this one with Ben, or like other recent ones, like with Rover. So much fun to do. But it's just running a podcast at some point. I mean, obviously, this is not my full-time job. This is kind of a fun side project that has gone much further than I ever would have expected. But in the past year or so, I've been kind of like not as enthused about it. And I've just realized, it's been such a great project, and I'm not disappearing. I will say too, I am not like, I know you could look at it and say, oh, he's down on Disney or theme parks, or whatever. That's not really true. Yes, I'm sure there are things with all the operators, including Disney, that I would like to see them do better. I'd really love to have Magical Express back and many other things, but it's not really about that. I still really love going to the parks, especially going with family members, but also solo or friends or whatever. Still love going to the parks. And I think in a way, part of me is thinking I'd rather just focus on going to the parks rather than talking about it. And it would be really fun to go to Walt Disney World and not think, oh, I got to do a podcast on this, or not got to, but I'm going to, or just go and enjoy the parks. And I think that's kind of where I am right now, where I've been spending less time on social media, and not just because of this, but also just looking at it more like, hey, life's good. My kids are, they're now 15 and 11 and still enjoy at the moment, I think, spending time with me. So I want to do more of that and just do more things, and maybe spend less time in front of the computer or talking about it or everything else. And I think, like any project, it's just, there are so many great podcasts out there. It's not that like the bottom's dropped out. I know some of you still listen and still enjoy the show and everything else, but it has flattened out. For a while, I felt like it was growing and maybe building to something. And then just kind of, it's just been hanging out for a while. And that's fine. I'm totally good with it. But at some point, I'm spending a lot of time just doing something. And there's other things that I want to do, 48 years old right now. So there's a lot of reasons for that. But I've just been thinking a while about simplifying things and just kind of focusing on just doing more fun things when I'm not working. And I think while this is a great time, and these episodes are going to stay out there, they're not disappearing. And we still have 6 more after this, so I think that's going to be cool. Going to have some familiar faces, some new ones. I think it'll be a blast to do. And just, I'm so appreciative of all of you as listeners and just really proud of what I've done. This is not designed to be sad or negative. On the last show, I might talk a little bit about disappointments. Oh, I will say, too, that episode 250, I would love to just talk about various topics or questions that interest you that maybe I haven't covered as much on the show. So if there's anything you want to hear me talk about, I did this with episode 100 if you've been around for a while, but anything you'd like to hear me talk about within reason, shoot me an email, dan@tomorrowsociety.com. Would love to hear what you would like to hear from me on that last episode, because I'd rather it not just be me going over the history of the show and doing kind of what I'm doing now, but over a long period, which I will do some of that. But I would love to talk about just some different topics, whether it's about current state, future of the parks, whether it's about the show itself in the past, guests, whatever. Just I would love to hear that. So your participation would make that last episode even more fun. Also wanted to mention I have started paring down some social media accounts because most of them I have double of them because I've had kind of my own personal account and then the Tomorrow Society one. I don't know if that was the smartest move or not, but I did that on Instagram and Threads where I just have my account at the Dan Heaton. And right now I have 2 for Twitter, but that's going to get cut down. I've also got rid of like Blue Sky and Mastodon and stuff. So I'm really trying to pare that down a lot. But we'll still be around, still have a Facebook page, because I'm going to continue to work on the transcripts and then also just continue to kind of just going to still be out there. I'll still be on social media, and obviously you can follow me those accounts. I know my Instagram is private, but I will accept it as long as you seem like a real person. But still going to be out there posting here and there. It's mainly just, I think, this project. And who knows, down the road, if something jumps out, I would love to still guest on podcast. If you have a show, if you're interested in having me on as a guest, I would do that even after this show is over. And, would love to go to a fan event like Retro Magic, that type of thing. So I'm still going to be out in the world of theme park fans, just as Dan, not as Dan, the Tomorrow Society podcast, just Dan who used to do a podcast on theme parks. That's going to be where it goes. But I think that's enough for now. Obviously, if you have questions about the show or anything, feel free to shoot me an email or message on social media where I'm still located. But wanted to make that announcement now because also, too, I thought about announcing it just right before the end, but I kind of like the idea of, like, even this one was a little more freewheeling and silly and just enjoying these last few episodes as we're kind of rolling to that final episode 250, which I don't know exactly when that'll be. It will be before the end of the year. I'm going to keep releasing these episodes like this one, as quickly as I have them done. I have not recorded any future interviews yet, but I will soon. It's probably going to still be every 2 weeks or so, maybe even faster. But looking at the math there, it would likely be in December, possibly late November, where that's going to happen. So that's all I've really got for you. I want to say thanks again to Skipper Ben, and thank you all for listening to this show. I really appreciate it. Whether you've been here for 9 years or just for this episode, it's been awesome to connect with you or that you've taken the time to listen. Thanks so much, and I will talk to you soon.